and welcome to The Testing Show, episode 149, SAP for Utilities 2024 Reflections. This show was recorded on Friday, September 13th, 2024. Qualitest recently participated in the SAP for Utilities conference in Florida, and we have several key players who were part of the proceedings. Heusser and Michael Larsen welcome Qualitest and Tricentis regulars Rick Lesley, Ryan Williams, Kevin Flynn, and Jeff Fillegar to talk about utilities, moving their SAP systems to the cloud, major digital transformation efforts with aggressive deadlines, and the need to ensure quality, minimize disruption to users and providers alike. And with that, on with the show.
Well, thanks, Michael, and welcome back. If you are a software tester involved in testing in the past 10 years, one thing we've seen is that the travel budgets have been cut. When the pandemic hit, a lot of the travel budgets didn't come back. Even if you're lucky enough to have budget to go to one conference a year, it's probably either in your specific discipline or broad general testing. So there are all these other communities out there, specifically SAP testing and utilities, that you might either be interested in, or if you are active in, you might not get a lot of attention for, you might not have. So both Qualitest and our leading partner, Tricentis, were at SAP for Utilities recent conference. Tricentis presented, and we're going to tell you all about it, get the inside scoop if you couldn't make it. Speaking of which, our first guest is Rick Lesley, who is the Executive Vice President at Qualitest. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thank you.
So tell us about the conference. Did you go to the keynotes? What did you learn? What are they saying?
Yeah, it was a great conference. Very well attended. A lot of similar themes this year as last year. A significant focus on energy needs in the future, adoption that many utilities are starting to have with their SAP to the cloud, migrations. Many conversations that I had were really focused on the fact that last year it was getting everybody thinking about moving to the cloud and getting their migration plans put in place. And now many of the conversations were around people now beginning to execute on their plans. In my conversations, their projects are starting to kick off. They're starting to think about how to move to the new SAP, if you will, in the very near term. And a lot of great questions about how you can incorporate quality engineering and automation into those plans in order to hit aggressive deadlines. So it was a great conference and look forward to the next one.
Yeah, those aggressive deadlines, I wish they were unique or rare. I wish someone would complain to me about having deadlines that were unrealistically broad. Doesn't seem to happen much. So thanks, Rick. We also have on the show today Ryan Williams, Strategic SAP Director at Tricentis. Again, that's our partner. They make a product called Tosca. I'm sure you've heard of it if you've listened to the show more than twice. Ryan, what did you see happening? Did Tricentis present?
Yeah. Tricentis is SAP's official solution extension for quality engineering. We attend most SAP shows as an invited guest. We presented on de-risking digital transformation. As Rick was saying, these customers are all in a journey to go through some digital transformation over the next couple of years. A lot of them moving their on-prem real estate to the cloud. The common theme is, how do we get there faster? How do we de-risk these programs and projects? And how do we ensure quality across the entire platform as they make these massive moves? I think the deadline of SAP asking people to get to the latest release is starting to encroach faster and faster. This is our third year presenting at the utility conference as an SAP partner, and you can just hear the momentum of the customers out there trying to understand what they're trying to figure out as they want to move faster, getting to the cloud. We specifically presented on de-risking digital transformations and what can you do today to get started now, even before you pull that trigger to move forward. Being able to surround not just SAP, but the full end-to-end business processes, and to be able to enable all the integration points and to be able to test not just SAP applications, but everything that makes SAP run in the cloud. That was our common theme. As Rick said, it was an extremely well-attended event. I think both Jeff and I have lost our voices a little bit here after being nonstop talking at our booth for 8 hours every day. So yeah, it was a phenomenal event. And I think there's going to be a lot of momentum coming out of it, not just the rest of the year here, but setting us up and teeing us up for 2025.
So allow me to demonstrate my ignorance. I understand that SAP is a really big database combined with a front end that allows companies to get their business processes and their data picture all in one place to run their business and plan their resources. And you said that they are being pushed to upgrade to the current version, upgrade to the cloud. Is there a deadline? Do they have to get rid of their old client server systems? Is SAP going to stop support?
Yeah, well, with every large software vendor, deadlines can be fluid. It was 2027. I believe it's 2030 now, where they absolutely need to be off of the legacy systems, or otherwise they're going to be charged extended maintenance. So people are just trying to get in front of that. But more to that point, the innovation that SAP is putting into the cloud technologies is really pushing people to want to get there faster, to be able to adopt these technologies faster, and to show quick wins to the business. The old days of buying ERP software or going through digital transformations and waiting 8, 9, 12, 15 months to show value to the business, those days are over. You need to buy, deploy, and show value. And that was kind of the common theme that we were hearing.
Just one more follow-up. What are you going to do to de-risk? That's great. De-risk sounds great. How do you do it?
Yeah, for sure. The way that Tricentis kind of approaches things is looking at things holistically from the business process, whether it be documenting the business process and establishing traceability and requirements of what you need to do as you kind of take that path to the migration, being able to orchestrate and simulate APIs and integrations that are being fed in. Most SAP customers have hundreds of applications that talk to SAP. Do you really want to have to stand up every single one of those in a new QA environment in the cloud? Being able to orchestrate, simulate, and virtualize those APIs is dramatically helping customers move faster. In fact, one of our customers was on a 5-year journey consolidating 5 legacy billing systems to a single S4 instance. And they said that the combination of being able to understand change, understand what's being impacted, and easily create automation, but probably more important, easily maintain automation, allowed them to finish that project 7 months ahead of schedule. That's an amazing stat, but I think what's even more powerful to that stat is the fact that their next 5 releases went live with 0 defects in production. That's kind of what we do, is we basically help you understand what the impact of the change is going to be, help you understand what that traceability is, help you create automation at the right time, at the right place, for the right purpose, for not just SAP, but the entire end-to-end business process.
Now, our audience is a bunch of software testers, test managers, test executives, and they can be very critical. I want to make sure we put the claim in context. We're talking about enterprise planning that runs companies' internal business processes, so you can do things like lock down the browser. The business processes are well defined, and under those conditions, it can be possible to have multiple releases where nobody notices a significant issue, which I think is what I heard you say.
Yeah,
Did I get
absolutely. Specific to the utility conference, we're talking about call centers and meters and billing and all those complex. I mean, billing is always a challenge for utility customers, and trying to figure out the records and the distribution, and trying to understand different things such as carbon emission reporting and all the volume of data that goes into that. So you're not just talking about an isolated application, you're talking about multiple applications all working together to satisfy specific business requirements.
Yeah, and maybe even external kiosks. But some of our audience works for e-commerce companies where they have no control over the browsers that are continuously upgraded, or that Firefox tells them about it after they've done it. We'll go, whoa, 0 defects, man. But in this context, I think it makes sense and still very impressive.
So just stepping in here and also realizing, and the fact that we also have another guest that we haven't had a chance to introduce yet. We also have Kevin Flynn. And Kevin, thanks so much for joining us. And I would love to follow up on this from the perspective of a lot of people that hear about these conferences or hear about what goes on with them. Many of the people on the ground floor, as I like to put it, never get a chance to go to these events. They just don't, for various reasons. I remembered going back years and years when I was working at Cisco Systems. I was actually in the trenches for years before I actually got a chance to go and attend our own big event, and that was Interop at the time. And it was really cool to be able to do so finally, because there was so much that I got to know about the broader industry that I was working in outside of just my own little bubble. And so many people may not get the chance to do that. So for those who didn't get a chance to go, or who aren't even really clear about what this conference actually covers, what did they miss? And How would you encourage them to say, hey, this is something you might really want to pay attention to?
Yeah, no, it was a very interesting conference. We talked to a large number of utilities, ranging from very small co-ops and municipalities up to the very large utilities. Many sent 15, 20 people on the large side, all learning different parts of the SAP digital transformation that pretty much every company is going through right now as SAP expires their old legacy software and people have to move to this new platform, more secure, shorter times for implementation, better integration with other products, et cetera. So everyone's saying the same thing, from the smallest muni with 150,000 customers to the largest utility with 10 million customers. Everyone's worried about getting off of phase zero in the SAP framework and moving into the upgrades and the digital transformation that SAP is promising. So there were tons of track sessions around each of the different components, from moving your data correctly and providing good software testing and managing the deployment process. And so probably close to 100 tracks on that. Each of them kind of is what you would think. Each organization is going to have their own specific challenges, but everyone's currently going through this. So everyone's going through doing upgrades, or they just made it right across the finish line with it, and now they're trying to operate and run in that new environment. So that's what people were saying from the 30 or 40 utilities we talked to across the United States. All of them have similar challenges. So you're not alone in that as you move with your upgrade. Integrations are always a concern too, as far as migrating those integrations, and then having platforms like Tricentis and testing integrators like Qualitest can really help drive out that value and have the zero defects going into production that people won't even notice. They'll just go with a new working model and it'll be a great experience for them.
And speaking of that zero defects, the other part of that was, I think, more impressive was the 7 months early. We recently did hey, we can't test everything through the UI. In fact, what's happening is people are not testing. So let's do through APIs and let's do CI/CD project. And in that project, it simply wasn't designed to be done through the API. So we had to sort of reverse engineer the transaction order of the JavaScript to get you logged in, to get the permissions and authentications. And the test system wasn't really designed to deal with fake synthetic users. It was 4 months before we had a test strategy. That was really a legacy system, was really unfortunate, but it's an impressive result. So that said, we also have Jeff Fillegar here, who is going back to Tricentis, Senior Director of Solution Engineering at Tricentis. Did I get the title right? Right,
Yes.
Jeff, got a lot of people on today. Great. So we've got a lot of different ideas. What can we do with all of this? How do people move forward?
Sure. Thanks for having me on today. So I worked the booth with Ryan and our other peers all this week, and I would say that one of the more common themes, building upon everything that's been mentioned so far, but the more common ask is, yes, okay, we're planning to go to SAP's customer for cloud, or our traditional call center application now is going to be in the cloud. Our traditional on-prem SAP UI clients are now going to be in the cloud or in our private cloud. And now we're going to be responsible for taking monthly patches from SAP. We're not going to have full control over the environment. How do we maintain that and lower the risk so that our end users being our internal clients, and then our external customers, people that go out and, we're all residential, commercial utilities customers on here and people listening, right? So you go out to yourenergycompany.com and pay your bill, or if you call in and you want some information, that individual answering that call is going to be using SAP software. So how do you ensure that the applications under test, once they're in production, are going to work as expected? And really the only answer is through automation, through test automation. With the vast amount of business processes and permutations that you would have to just in a simple regression test have to do, there's no way that some of our large utility customers could do this in a manual effort. Going to the point about the 7 years early. So I worked on that project extensively for 3 years. And that was the only way that they were able to go into production earlier, 7 months than planned, was through automation. Once they had their core set of scenarios, like, hey, I want to move in, I want to move out, I want to pay my bill, I want to change my address, all the core scenarios that we would all use as a utility customer. Once we had all of those foundational test cases automated, that allowed them to move at hyper speed, because then now they're only testing what's being changed now. And they were able to understand that by using one of the solutions that we have called change impact analysis that says, hey, well, this is the list of items that's going to be changed, and this is what's going to be impacted on SAP and all the other downstream systems. So then they could just focus on validating the new requirements that are being implemented and then just run the regression tests based on what was being affected with the change. So that's how do we get there, and how do we get there faster? It's through test automation with a combination of change intelligence.
So if I can have one kind of wrap up, we always like to look at this from the perspective of what's the elevator pitch, or what's one thing that orgs who are trying to move from client server to the cloud and improve their testing, what could we tell them? And anybody who wants to answer, what's that one fundamental thing from the conference or from your interactions that you could say, we could really do this?
I'll take a stab at it. Because it's utilities focused, the common or core business processes are very similar, irrespective of whether it's a super large publicly traded company or a co-op in Texas, as an example. Someone's going to have to sign up for your utility service. They moved into a new house or an apartment, and then they're going to pay their bill, right? And then maybe a year later, they move to another apartment or buy a house, and they change their address. So it's common. So that means that everyone here is going to be dealing with the same business process, and everyone can speak the same language. So that means that you're not alone. And so if you're having these challenges with going through planning and what should we implement first, what should we test first, what should we deploy first, combination of Qualitest and Tricentis, we've done this before, we're actively doing it now. And for those that did visit the booth and were interested in more information, we provided that, but I'm pretty sure you guys are going to provide how your listeners can get a hold of Qualitest and Tricentis. I would say summarize, you're not alone. We've done this before, and we've got solutions to help you get there faster and maintain your systems.
So I should probably close out, but the other thing that I also heard from Jeff, and we've been hearing it more lately, especially on the Qualitest side. We've always done what's going to change impact analysis, but we did it with spreadsheets. We did it by hand. We did it in meetings. What's happening now is two things. One, the applications are becoming more distributed. So your change impact analysis, we really do think only this API was impacted, only these 5, this constellation. And the other thing is that the tools are starting to emerge where it's to become automated, where you can do analysis. Now, depending on your company, you might still want to have a human being look at that and say, I don't think so. Or some companies do it all the way end to end and have the portion of regression checking that is automated can just run based on a predictive algorithm based on what changed and what it thinks was impacted. And I'm skeptical of that, but we've seen significant success. So I want to give it some credit. I think that's the new idea that I was hearing here. With that, I think we'll call it a day. I hope you like the new format. If you don't, send us a note. We don't have to do it again, but it felt a little faster and fun, so we wanted to give it a try. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and we'll be seeing you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank
Bye,
you. Appreciate you guys attending, listening in. Bye, guys.
That concludes this episode of The Testing Show. We also want to encourage you, our listeners, to give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and the other places that The Testing Show can be found. Those ratings and reviews help raise the visibility of the show and lets more people find us. Matt and Michael have written a book that has distilled many years of this podcast, along with our decades of experience, and you can get a copy of it for yourself. Software Testing Strategies, a testing guide for the 2020s, is published by Pact Publishing and is available from Pact Publishing directly from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other online booksellers. Also, we want to invite you to come join us on The Testing Show Slack channel as a way to communicate about the show. Talk to us about what you'd like to hear and who you'd like to hear from, and also help us shape future shows. Please email us at thetestingshow@qualitestgroup.com and we will send you an invite to join the group. The Testing Show is produced and edited by Michael Larsen, moderated by Matt Heusser, with frequent contributions from our many featured guests who bring the topics and expertise to make the show happen. Thanks for listening.